7-time Super Bowl champ. Tom Brady, 23 years, best quarterback to ever play the game. So I was thinking about this, Tom, as I'm watching Kansas City. I still feel like I said they're like an electric vehicle that's only charged about 50%. They're kind of trying to figure out what they are. Backup running back. They don't know what to do with Xavier Worthy. They just kind of go back. Your Randy Moss team, boom, you knew very early it's special. But did you ever have a team that won a Super Bowl, but in the middle of a season, you didn't quite know what the offensive identity was? Because that's what I watched when I watched the Chiefs.
I actually think they do have a great offensive identity. I think look, the game's about winning. We talk about points, you talk about, yards, and you talk about penalties and defensive stops. To me, at the end of the game, do you have more points than the other team? That's the maturity of a great team and a great organization. I played on a lot of teams. Some were a lot of offensive strengths. Some had a lot of defensive strengths. Some years we were kind of middle of the pack at both, but we played well situationally. 3rd down, red area, 2-minute. Every year, that's the best part about the NFL is the constant transition, the constant change. You see they add DeAndre Hopkins at the trade deadline. So it's like, in the end, when you have Patrick Mahomes and it's a 1-score game, everyone's always betting on the Chiefs. Now, can someone get away from the Chiefs? I don't know, because that defense plays so well. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes is a lesser player because he doesn't have 25 touchdowns at this point. It's just he's not playing with guys that can produce that from the receiver position, so that naturally Patrick's job is to, and I covered him a few weeks ago when I said the job of the quarterback is to manage all the variables of the game and the season, injuries, weather, the rhythm of the offense, and then ultimately go out there and make the plays that put you in a position to win. And that's what winners do. And certainly Patrick is that. And then he's got Andy Reid there, who's as great of a coach, in NFL history. He's on the kind of the Mount Rushmore of coaches. So you have this consistency of this organization from owner, general manager, coach, quarterback, and then to me, a defensive coordinator in Spags, that the way that defense plays puts them in a position to win every single week. So it's obviously they can be beat. There's probably games where they could have been beat this year, but every game is decided by a few plays, and the reality of the Chiefs team is they always find a way to make the plays when it matters.
I remember when Randy Moss played with you, when you guys brought a new player in, and you had talked at the time, you're like, Belichick, and you were like, he's just smart and he knows football. So obviously DeAndre Hopkins doesn't know the entire playbook yet, but I'm watching him and I'm like, especially that play in the back of the end zone, I'm like, God, you'd think they'd had 50 practices. What is it about certain receivers with you, like Moss or DeAndre Hopkins? They don't have to know the playbook, but yet I felt like had I just landed on the planet and watched it, I would have never guessed he just showed up at the facility. What was it with Moss? What is it with a veteran receiver that a young receiver just couldn't do?
And that's a great question. So the reality is a great receiver, well, any receiver that's a veteran knows what a practice week looks like. They know how to run all the routes in the offense. Now, they may not know exactly where to line up because everyone has their variations of words and descriptive words they use to get people aligned, to get the protections organized, and then to call routes. Some people use number systems. Some people use words that people have to memorize. Some people use a one-term word that tells everybody what to do. Kansas City does it kind of a myriad of different ways. And then once DeAndre can really comprehend that, he's going to say, oh, okay, that's what I used to call this outcut in Tennessee was like this, or in Houston it was like this, but in KC it's like this, but I still know how to run the route. So you have these veteran players that have the experience to run the routes, to know the offenses. It's not like, when he played for Tennessee, the field was a different size. It's the same rules. It's the same routes. It's ultimately just how you call them. So once he gets out there and he's confident in what he has, he's going to look like DeAndre Hopkins always has, which is, he's got good quickness. He's got great catch radius. He's got this ability in situational plays to make catches like that, and certainly as a red area target. And I just think if you look at the Chiefs and their injuries at the receiver position, to add someone like DeAndre, who has that veteran presence, and no game's going to be too big for him. He's played a lot of big games. So that always gives a quarterback a lot of confidence. I remember playing with certain rookie receivers. Literally, it was like the first day of OTAs. And I'd call like, hey, run a slant. And he'd look at me like, a slant, okay. And that's kind of the most generic route. Look, since we were running those in parking lots, with your friends. And there was a few guys I played with that they'd start the route slow, then they'd speed up into the break, then they'd slow down coming out of the break, and then they'd look for the ball, and I'd look at them and be like, what the hell was that? There's such a learning curve that needs to happen from a rookie player, whereas when you get someone like DeAndre, you go, hey, DeAndre, run a slant, and it looks like a slant. It looks great. It's fluid. It's smooth. You can play it. So with a rookie, there's such a learning curve. There's so many things to learn that you're never going to get that type of production in a short period of time with a rookie that you can get with a veteran, unless that's just a very special rookie. And I've had some of those. Those guys, to me, are more anomalies than kind of what the norm is.
I know you probably haven't sat and watched too many Denver games or Bears games, but with the young quarterbacks, obviously they grew up in a different environment than you, 7-on-7 camps, way more snaps by the time they're 15 than you had. But go back to your career. I remember you doing an interview with Jay Glazer once, and you're like, I've seen everything, dude. You could throw anything at me. When was the time in your career? You're pretty a learned guy. You're very committed. How long did it take? They always talk about things slow down a little. How long? Mahomes said it was year 3. What was it for you?
The answer is it progressively gets more and more. And I would say maybe at year 1, it's 50% of the way that you want it. And then year 2, it's 60%. And ultimately, you're trying to get to 100%. But even I think for Patrick, if I look at his situation and his development, he was very lucky to sit behind. And Patrick, let me get this out of the way. He's a phenomenal player. To me, is, he, Lamar, Josh Allen, you're talking about the upper echelon, as we all know. And Patrick is going to go down as one of the greats ever for a number of reasons. But if I look at him, he went to college at Texas Tech. He had Cliff Kingsbury there with him for 3 years. An NFL caliber coach running a lot of NFL caliber type calls and methodologies behind what he's doing. So he had 3 years of that. Then he goes to the Chiefs, and he's got Alex Smith as the guy that's ahead of him, who's a phenomenal player, great leader, does everything the right way. And then he's got Andy Reid as his play caller. So it's like there's a reason why it all works, and there's this development that happens, and why Patrick has been able to ascend so quickly. And he would have found a way to ascend at some point anyway. I'm just saying, I could never have reached this area of growth that I needed to, whether that was year 1 or 3 or 5. It was accelerated because of all the things that I had in place. When I was in college, I ran a pro-style offense.
Yeah.
I got drafted. I had Bill Belichick teach me. I got to sit behind Drew Bledsoe. I worked really hard to learn all those things and embrace the challenge. And I think when you're a young quarterback, ultimately that's what you're trying to do. Be in a situation where you can learn, grow, develop. It's all about mentorship. It's all about the people that come in your life. I see Bo Nix from Denver. He's got Sean Payton there. He's a phenomenal coach. He's going to get great coaching. They're going to have great scheme. A lot of times the first reads for him are going to be open because he's got a great play caller that knows how to design things. So then you go on the other side of it. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks that don't make it. Maybe they wouldn't have made it anyway, but I'm just saying there's a potential that they could have. Look at Sam Darnold now. He's playing really well in Minnesota. He's got a good coach. He's got a good scheme. He's got some good receivers. He's playing well. When he was at the Jets, he didn't have all those things quite in place. So we always have to look at, I think, the physical makeup of these young players. What are they capable of? Do they have good arms? Do they have great arms? Are they athletic? Can they get out of the pocket? And then to me, there's a mental element that always comes into quarterback play. And I said in this last game against Green Bay, I was watching Green Bay Lions this last weekend, I said, There's no way for me to really see sustained success in the NFL at the quarterback position if you don't have total control of what's being done out on the field. If you're expecting your coach to call a play from the sideline, and that play's going to come into your helmet, you're going to call it, you're going to walk to the line of scrimmage, and that play's going to be successful regardless of the defensive look, you're out of your mind. That's not the way it works. The defense calls plays to stop you, and they have their own tendencies. So it's up to the quarterback ultimately to decide, okay, I got a play called. I see what the defense is doing. Is this play going to work or not? If it's going to work, you run it. If it's not, what do I need to do to survive the down? Or what do I need to do to put us in a position to be really successful? That, to me, is the operational control the quarterbacks need. And the problem is with the development of college programs now, they're not getting developed in the same way. Now they get to a pro program, and a lot of the NFL programs, there's so much money going around. You know, the need to develop is guys can sign 1 or 2 contracts and not develop and still make a great living. So I would love to see the quarterback play continue to evolve and grow. It's only going to come from more time on task, more time with your coaches, more understanding of what your roles and responsibility are. You're supposed to develop a toolkit as a quarterback to deal with what you see on the game every single day. I seen Jared Goff, again, covering him this last game. It was awesome to watch. In L.A., he had a great system. He had McVay to learn under. He brought that. He comes to a phenomenal program in Detroit right now, where, to me, they're doing a lot of things the right way. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, says, all right, Jared, we're going to put more and more on your plate. We're going to give you a great opportunity to succeed. And you have to have the ability to process a lot of information, which is one of Jared's strengths, to actually implement all those things. And when you do it well, to me, that's what gives you a great chance to win every single week in the NFL.
So Bill Belichick said a couple of weeks ago when asked about Detroit, he's like, they've got everything offensively. You hope they make a mistake, and you just called the game. And Green Bay's got a good team. It looked like older brother, younger brother, let me teach you how to play football. Go back. I mean, Detroit O-line, tackles, run game, tight end, quarterback. Go back to your career. Because I felt like Green Bay very quickly was like, we're a little out of our element here. This is a really, really. Yeah. So go back to your career. Was there ever a team you played, and you may not have said this to your teammates, but you thought to yourself, I'm not sure they have a weakness. Like that is Pro Bowlers everywhere. I watched Detroit's offense, Tom. I don't know what the weakness is. Deep ball, slants, slots. Did you ever face a team like that where you looked at the personnel and thought, it's almost a perfect offense?
I would say the early Colts offenses we faced, they had Saturday, they had Terry Glenn, tight end, they had Pollard, they had at times Dallas Clark, they had Marvin, they had Reggie, they had Stokely, they had Edgerrin. They were so good, and I'm lucky I didn't have to go against them. I mean, to me, it was great. Belichick would say, guys, listen, this would be a Wednesday meeting. Understand this. They are going to move the ball on us. They're too good. They got so many guys. They're going to go up and down. We need to play good red area defense. And we're going to work on red area defense on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because that's going to decide the game. They're going to get the ball down there, which is a great humility from a coach who's a defensive coach, who's essentially the coordinator, to say, these guys are so good, we're not going to just pull the wool over eyes and think that we're going to keep these guys at 240 yards offense. They're going to have yards. What we need to do is keep the points down. If we can keep the points down, and offensively, we can control the game, we can run the ball, and then we can score points, we're going to give ourselves a best chance to win. That, to me, is complementary football.
Right.
So when you play the Lions, the only way to beat them is to play a style where the offense complements the defense, and then the kicking game does their job. Sometimes when you punt, you play great field position. Okay, offensively, the best defense against the Lions offense, to me, is possess the football. You don't want to make it a track meet against a team that can run it. They throw it to their tight end. They throw it to their receivers. When they get Jamison Williams back, they have the explosive receiver. So there's so many, and they go for it on fourth down so often. You got to stop them from 4 downs, not just 3, which is a really hard thing to do. So there's a lot of challenges that the Lions are presenting. And look, the one game they did lose this year, they were 1 of 6 in the red area.
That's right.
Against the Bucs.
Yep.
So to me, they got a great offense. They got a lot of humility. They got a great culture. To me, they're doing so many things the right way in the NFL right now.
So you're calling the San Francisco game this weekend. When and I think Brock's a good player, but I also think, you're a great example of this. Executives miss all the time on players. Antonio Gates and Tony Romo weren't drafted. There's players all over. I watched the kid for the Rams this weekend. Some undrafted safety had his 4th pick. There's talent everywhere. What was the thing when the first time you saw Brock Purdy? Obviously, you weren't wowed by his size. His arm strength is good enough.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that you saw? I wouldn't see this. You would see this, and you thought, that guy's pretty good. Like, is there something that you see because you played the position, a tell like in poker, that you were like, this kid's going to work?
Sure. So I think it's poise and composure. It's calm under chaos. That's what the quarterback needs to do. And he walks into that huddle. He needs 10 other guys looking at him go, all right, man, you're totally under control. And whatever you say, we're going to do to our best abilities because we know you're going to deliver. And they all have that confidence in Brock as a player. And you're right, Brock's not the biggest. His arm strength isn't like Aaron Rodgers. But if he can play with anticipation, and this offense, to me, even studying the last few days, is a lot different than the one that they had last year and the year before. They had so many weapons the last couple years. Brock essentially was a point guard out there just delivering balls to halfbacks and flip it out there to Debo and gain yards. And then he's got Ayuk, catching in cuts and running for a lot. Oh, you forgot about Kittle. Boom, we're going to throw over the top of you there. This offense has been in and out of a lot of their great players. And I think getting McCaffrey back is so important for this offense because he provides that passing threat out of the backfield that they just haven't had this year. So now the defense has to come up closer to the line of scrimmage to defend the run with Christian as well as the pass. And that, to me, opens up more of the intermediate and deeper parts of the field for Brock, where they've kind of been throwing more of these intermediate-type targets on the field, which I don't think is necessarily the strength of that offense. So if they can get Christian back playing well with Mason and McCaffrey, wow, that's a great group. Then at receiver, obviously losing Ayuk is a brutal loss. But they drafted Pearsall in the first round. He's going to get his legs underneath him. You still got Jennings, who to me is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL, performed so well in the Super Bowl. They have a ton of confidence in him. And then Debo, his versatility. You still got Juszczyk, who's a ridiculous chess piece for Kyle. And then you have Kittle, who can turn up from time to time and go, holy cow, we almost forgot about him. And then not to mention a phenomenal offensive line. So they still have all the pieces in place. Now, they've kind of always seemed to turn around their season around the bye week. This is when they need to do it. They just had their bye week. We'll see, if they get Greenlaw back on defense, that would be a huge boost. Unfortunately, what they really miss on defense, they lost Hargrave. They lost this interior rusher. So now it's really kind of a one-man show with Bosa on the perimeter. But if they can get Greenlaw back and get him playing close to the way that he was playing in there with Warner, you have one of the best tandems in the league, if not the best at linebacker. They rush the quarterback a little better. And then that secondary unit, which has always got a lot of tight coverage, they can capitalize on offensive mistakes. So I would never count out the 49ers. I think they're so well coached. They got a great system in place, a great culture of guys that know how to win. Those are all the things you look for with the Niners.
7 rings. Tom Brady, Fox Sports, taking time for us today. Tom, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Great talking to you, partner.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.